I promised you a cranberry bread recipe from the post that I posted the other week, and it's actually an adaptation off of a strawberry bread recipe. And I subbed out the strawberries for cranberries because I had a can of whole cranberries on my shelf that I needed to use up in my pantry because it wasn't gonna last until Thanksgiving. So it actually worked out perfect that I was able to use the cranberries, but you can actually sub out for anything. And today I'm gonna remake the recipe using peaches. So this is a very simple bread recipe. Like I said, it's an adaptation off of a strawberry bread, and it calls for 2 cups of strawberries, but you could sub it out for cranberries and some walnuts if you wanted to. You can sub it out for peaches, which is what I'm doing today. So it's a very generic bread that you could add any type of fruit or nut to that you wanted. But you're gonna start with your blender, and you're gonna put an egg, 2 cups of sugar, and a cup of canola oil in there, and you're gonna get that mixing. I used organic canola oil, but you're gonna start that mixing. And then in my bowl, I put my 3 cups of flour, my teaspoon of salt, teaspoon of baking soda, and teaspoon of cinnamon, and I mix that all together. And then I slowly incorporate that into this mixture because you don't want to overbeat your bread mixture, all right? So I'm gonna start with that and make my batter, and then I'm actually gonna fold in my peach chunks because I don't want them to just completely get obliterated. I want to fold them in so they'll stay in pieces. And then I'm topping this with, I took a couple of the peach slices and I sliced them a little thinner so I can put them and make them pretty on the top of my bread before I stick it in a 350-degree oven. And you'll also want to go ahead and spray your pans with olive oil or whatever kind of organic cooking spray that you have to make sure that your bread doesn't stick. Okay, so I added it a little bit at a time because again, you don't want to add all your dry ingredients into your wet ingredients all at once because 1, it'll go everywhere, and 2, it won't blend nicely. It won't mix together the way you want it to. So at this point, I'm actually gonna add in my 1/2 cup of my peach juice to this mixture. Also, if you wanted to, you could cut back on the sugar since this peach juice is really sweet. I put 2 cups of sugar in here, but you could do 1.5 cups because there is sugar in this juice. Okay, it's almost like a syrup. So you could do that if you wanted to, just an FYI. All of my ingredients are in, except for my peaches, which I'm gonna fold in a second. But I did want to point out, you wanna make sure that this is the consistency of like pancake batter, all right? So if your mixture is too dry, that's okay. You can always add a little bit of water. I would start with 1/4 cup of water or juice, whatever liquid of your choice, but you want it to be kind of a little thicker than the consistency of pancake batter, all right? And then at this point, I'm gonna clean off my paddle and I'm gonna fold in my peaches, and then I'm gonna put them in 2 pans because this makes 2 loaves. So I'm gonna fill 2 pans about halfway. My batter, just so that you know, ended up a little thicker, and it could have been because of the flour. You know, there's different kinds of flours. There's all-purpose, there's bread flour, cake flour. So keep that in mind. That could affect how thick your bread or how thin your bread batter ends up being. So if you need to add 1/4 cup of water or juice or milk, like I was saying before, go ahead and do that. I'm folding in my peaches, and then I'm gonna portion it out into my 2 loaf pans. And I'm gonna put it in a 350-degree oven for about 40 minutes, but you're gonna just watch it. You'll know when it starts to get browned, and you'll start to smell it, and then just test it in the center whenever you think it might be done, just to make sure that your knife or whatever you test it with, you can test it with a toothpick, it comes out clear.
Bingo.
I'm putting my peach slices on here just so it looks nice. Also, I just wanted to note this. I'm using 2 different kinds of pans. Obviously, one of them is darker and the other one is a little lighter. So you're gonna wanna make sure, depending upon the pan that you use, that's going to determine how your breads bake. If it's in a darker pan, it's gonna really start to get browned quickly. So I'm gonna watch this one a little bit more than this lighter pan. Also, if you're using a glass loaf pan, you need to knock the temperature down from 350 to 325, and it may need to cook a little bit longer, but you're gonna need to knock that temperature down because when it's in a glass pan, it cooks very differently than when it's in a metal pan. So those are just some tips for you, but I'm gonna throw these in the oven on 350, and I'm gonna watch this one especially because it might not take quite 40 minutes, and I'll show you the finished product. Okay, they're done. This pan did take about 5 minutes less than the lighter pan, so I'm glad I watched it because it would have gotten too brown. And this one took a little bit longer, all right? But what you're gonna do is you're gonna leave them in your loaf pan, take them out, and then you're just gonna take a thin spatula, and it will start to pull away from the sides, but go ahead and make sure that it's not sticking for any reason, and make sure that if you tried to lift it up, you could, because we're gonna leave it in here for about 15-20 minutes to cool in the pan and pull away from the side. And then what I will usually do is take an oven glove and I will flip it over and then take it out and put it on a cooling rack and let it cool for another 20-30 minutes until it's room temperature and I can stick it in the refrigerator. But there is your organic bread. I made the cranberry before, now I made the peach, but make this today and tell me how it turns out. If you liked this video, hit subscribe and turn on notifications for more great videos.